Hey guys, welcome to the Island Renaissance podcast, the first long form conversation podcast in Sri Lanka. I'm here at iFilm Studios and I am absolutely elated and stoked to have the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Bathiya, joining us for the first ever episode. Thank you, Bathiya, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute honor, man.
It's an absolute honor for me to do this with you because if you guys know him, he has been true to his form of art. For the last 25 years, I know him. And Suresh, you have been actually, it's very strange. Like you see a lot of people, I should say this prior to starting this whole conversation. Why I even obliged was because I have great admiration for you because there are only a very few people I know who does a form of art. Say if you do a form of art which is a niche in this country, especially because it's a very small country, people don't stay with it because they do it as long as they can do it when they're young, and then they leave it and then they do other things if they can't go mass. But you have been true to your art and at the form of art, and it's great to see you still pursuing it and doing rock music and stuff like that, and it's very admirable.
Thank you, Bathiya. Thank you. Very kind. On that note, that's one thing I want to touch upon. Like, even we started the band pretty young. I know you guys started in 98, right? We had an idea to form a band in 98, and then 99 we formed. And when you first start a band and you do music, you don't always get the sort of encouragement that you imagine or envisage. And particularly, I think we were the antithesis of a lot of things at the time. So it was taboo to be in a band back then. It was more taboo to be in a rock band. Heavy metal, unheard of, not something that people and community would support back then, right? But I remember mostly it was very demotivational and demeaning for us because when we met some people that we used to look up to in the music industry as kids when we grew up, not to name drop anyone, but some of them said some pretty nasty things and they weren't. Of course, I do admit that when you do start off, you don't have a blueprint, you don't have an identity, you don't have a sound.
At the start, yes.
Yeah, and you're just learning from your influences and you're trying to put things together, and you have no concept of marketing, you have no business model. So we were like obviously all over the place. I don't know whether you remember this. I always say this along with Tenny, who started the band as co-founders, both of us, that when we started off, there were primarily three individuals that really inspired us and were very generous and kind. Shobi Pereira was one. Derek Vikramanayaka was the other, who always said, no matter what, do what you guys are doing. You can always improve. And the other was you. I don't know whether you remember when we first started, before we even dropped our first album, Hollow Dreams, which is also the first hard rock album at the time in Sri Lanka in 2003. I think around 2000 or 2001, we contacted you and you were very kind. If I remember right, you were in a flat in Maradana living with your mom?
I was in a flat in, I think it was in Narayanpeta, yeah.
Narayanpeta, okay.
Because we have a apartment there, so we used to live there.
Okay, I remember like vividly where you were very kind and we said, okay, we're the small buggers, we have a heavy metal band and we'd like to talk to you. And that's something that always stayed with us because not only the hospitality, Machan, but you invited us to your abode, to your home. And I remember we were introduced to Auntie at the time. I remember there was a piano.
Yes.
I think it was in the living room itself, the piano. And you sat down and you spoke to us for an hour or two and you gave us advice. And to this day, Majang, I'll be very honest because I'm always like a straightforward person. I'm very transparent, right? Good and bad. That's made a lot of friends and that's also made a lot of enemies. 50% of the advice we took and the advice that we applied has really helped us to this day. There's some advice that you gave us that we did not listen to, which we should have, which we, in retrospect, we learned that much later. That was totally on us because Uh, at that time, we came from a place where we thought, as kids also, that everyone should share like unanimously when it comes to the songwriting credits, even if they're not a part of it. Share the spoils of war and share the uh, what do you call it, credit. And there was some stuff there in terms of like legalities, marketing, and stuff you told us that we like really took to heart and worked on it. And the other stuff we learned along the way, and just like you said, it panned out. But I think also any foundation, I think, to success is built on maybe the pillars of mistakes that you learn from. And for us, that learning curve was there. But seriously, Machan, thank you for your kind words, your benevolence, and at that point for just taking time and space. I do you remember this, us coming over?
It's something like this. I always feel that people who criticize others, mostly, not everybody, but mostly are people who have yet to experience some sort of success.
Agreed.
Because even I have seen it. People who have gone halfway are the ones who are very critical. People who have gone the whole mile or the whole way, they generally are, they have a lot of empathy, they have a lot of kindness towards the others who are still along the way. And that, I think, I learned the hard way as well, because when I initially tried to do what we are doing, as in what Bathiya and Santhush are doing, I initially, like, if I take me as an individual, like prior to Bathiya and Santhush, this was along 1991, 1992, when we were like 15, 16, that this whole thought came into my head and my system. So when when I was trying to do this, there were people who were very hard on me, but there were also people who had gone the whole mile, who were very, very critical, but constructively. So with those experiences, what I learned was, every young person, like if you had taken 100% of what I told you at that time, you wouldn't have been here now. Anybody who says that, if somebody advises, even a teacher, even my small one, my daughter, I advise her, even when your teacher tells you, or even when I advise you, take in a part of it, but the rest of it, you do it the way you want to do, because sometimes the way I did it might not be the path for you.
True.
You go along your own path, you will, and those accidents, those falls are the ones which mold you.
That is true. Yes.
Now, say for example, if you take me as an individual, so until I was 23, I had my father to lean on and ask for advice and a lot of things. But then my father passed away when I was 23. After that, the next 5 years is what actually molded me into this rock hard, solid character that I am now, I feel.
Okay.
Because there were lots of downs.
And you were very close to him.
Yes. So there was lots of places where I burnt my fingers. But all that molded me to what I am today. So I think if you ever have a child, let them burn their fingers, because those accidents are what molds them to be a better person.
It shapes character.
It shapes character. So you need to tell them, okay, from day one, look, even if I advise you, constructively analyze it, take what you want. If you feel that what I'm saying is wrong, right? Okay, do it your way. You might crash, right? But never tell them you're there they are there for them to lean on.
Right, yes.
Right? You are there for them to lean on. Don't say that, but be there. That's it. And if they go to fall, just catch and throw them, but don't show them that you even did it.
But that's lacking today, don't you think?
Yeah, because the thing is, that is what molds a person. If you take myself and Santhush as well, at one point we had to tell up Hirans at one point back in the day when my father was alive. And he said, stay out of our business. Let us do this the way we want.
Okay.
Later on in life, once we burnt and once we became who we are, Then we used to go back to Santhush's dad and say, Uncle, what do you think about this? Because then you're grown up and you're at that state where you can absorb that man's advice.
And also your experiences have honed you.
Yes.
And you have your own. I guess what you're saying, Masang, I do really respect that, because I think all of us are like stories, right? Each of us have our own journeys, and each of us have a story arc in life, right? And it's true, along that journey, maybe there are roads and pathways that crisscross. People come into our lives, go out of our lives.
Exactly.
But I think maybe what really informs maybe the journey and those particular touch points or destinations, like you said, is where you make mistakes, where you burn and you learn, right? So that's beautiful. So you touch upon something that I think that's another thing you may not know, but we share in common. I think we're both only children,
Yes.
right? So I lost my dad when I was 10. He went for a very simple mine operation that was conducted by sort of family surgeons. So no one said anything, no one followed through, and there was a mishap, and he passed away. So that was very hard hitting. At 10, to lose that father figure, and then mom had to struggle to make the ends meet, and I'm sure that's something you can relate to also. And also when that changes, where you lose that sort of paternal figure, and then the maternal figure kind of becomes the alpha.
But I think the experience I had is far more. It's not as bad as yours, because losing a father at 10 and losing a father at 23 are completely two different things. At 10 is that's as deep as it can get.
It was bad, but I think, Majang, each of us, again, we have our own journeys. I think what you experience at 23, you can't really measure impact and repercussions. I think it impacted you, and in a way, I think that was equivalent to how it impacted me when I was 10. I don't think that it's quantifiable. So that's another thing I've learned. I think maybe as a kid, I didn't get it, where I always used to think, no, but how could you say this? I learned all this stuff. I lost so much so and so at a young age, and it's not comparable. But you learn to stop comparing, because every person's predicaments and issues are different. Everyone's success stories are different, right? So how much did the loss of your dad, I know it impacted me in such a huge way that it really made me, to be honest, middle class family. I was a spoiled kid as an only child. You lose your father figure, and all that is just gone. Everything changes. You grow up having to figure out your place, where you're going through periods of getting bullied. You're going through periods of not understanding who you are, what you want to be. And that's the point where you have relatives and you have people enforcing their ideologies on you and saying, be a doctor, be this, be that, work towards it. And you're very confused. And then me, and one thing though is that led to anarchy and teen rebellion. And I had to learn from all those things. Thankfully, I came out of it. But what made it worse was I had a lot of friction. I had a very love-hate relationship with my mother. A lot of respect for her. But she had one of the first Montessorian daycare centers, Machang, in the country. But she couldn't manage it after Dad's passing. She found it hard. And she was a lady who had a very big heart, and she had a lot of empathy. And as a result, she made a lot of poor business decisions, took a lot of needless risks, and she lost the business later on. So just to give you an idea, Mazan, she took in Tennyson Napoleon, Tenny, guitarist of Stigmata, because he had a lot of problems also. And she took him in also. We were both going to St. Thomas's College at the time. And by the time that year after A-levels, her business partner played her out. And then we lost our home. And we were technically literally on the streets. And a friend of ours, Sanjeeva Karunaratna Charlie, and his mum, Naina Karunaratna, were kind enough who said, you guys, you come in and stay with us until you can figure things out in life. So it was messy because I think mum kind of totally lost it. She got played because the home and the business were both in the same place. And when the business part played out, this was when you're 19, 20 and you're suddenly homeless and then you can't really identify anything. Luckily for us, the band had started then and that gave us hope. And during that time, I got into Calnia University. And that was a big deal for the family. But I was not in a frame of mind of wanting to study or focus on my education. That was a time where I wanted to do the band and I needed to work because I needed to figure out how to live. You're learning how to cook. For the first time, you're learning how to iron your clothes. You're learning how to clean. You're learning how to pay bills. And it was nuts, that journey. But at 23, Macham, when you lost your dad, and I know you come from a military background. And I also know, my understanding is that your dad never interfered. He always supported you in whatever you decided. Whatever you decided to do, your dad always encouraged and supported you. Is there any point, Macham, where the military sort of career occupation drew you towards that?
No, I was never attracted to go down that path. Not that because I don't like it, because by the time I was during my early days, after you passed 10, 11, 12, and when I became a teenager, I quite realized that that was not the path for me because I don't think I am strong enough for that job.
Okay.
But I'm strong enough for what I do right now because each person has their own strengths and I quite realized that at a young age.
Okay.
But what I grabbed from that particular setup is my personal discipline as an individual, I think is largely because of my father's influence. As in,
was he strict?
He was never strict, but he was very strategic in what he used to say. So he never shouted at anybody, but his the way that he communicated was very strategic, and it hit you very hard. He knew exactly what to say. Say, for example, I can still remember when I was quite young. You go out with your friends and have a drink. So one day I had a little bit too much, and when I came home, I didn't expect them to be at home. He's the one who opened the door. So I tried to be as straight as possible. This was when I was about 21, I guess 21, 20 on. And I went straight to the room and he didn't say anything. He just smiled and he closed the door. And the day after that, when we were all, I think, having a meal, I was going to serve myself, and I was afraid that if he told my mom would have played hell there because she gets excited and she would have shouted and all. The only thing he said was, even when you eat, don't go. Oh. He said it. And he looked at me and gave us such a sarcastic smile. To date, I remember it. Right? And he used to smoke. He used to be a chain smoker. And then he got a heart attack at the age of 42. So around the age of 18, 19, we also start experimenting on things, right? So one day I think I had experimented on a cigarette. And when I came home, you get the smell between your fingers. So then he used to be we were very close. So we went out and there was a ball and we were just playing. We were just...
You were a teenager?
Yeah, no, I was around 18, 19. We were very close. He was also a very fit man. So he used to come out and so for something he said, okay, try to talk me like this. I will see whether I can escape your grip. So when I put my hand across, him, I think he would have got the smell between my fingers. While I was holding him like this, he said, with this smell, I think that you also want to get a heart attack at a very early age, right? So, and he said, laughing, he said, so you saw me have this big heart attack at the age of 40. Then he was about 49.
Okay.
48, 49. Then he said, you saw me get this big heart attack and I almost died and you still didn't learn from it. That's all he said. That's all he said.
And you stopped after that.
Yeah, then I was like, shit, this is amazing. Like the way he was very subtle about things. And when I started to do this, what I wanted to do. So if I can tell you about myself, like I did not come to do, what I am doing now because I couldn't do anything else. I was very good at what I did. I was very good at my education. I did my exams very well. Then I did my degree. So I was good at what I did. But my sheer passion was to create music.
Okay.
My passion was to create music.
You had this from the time you were like...
Yeah, so I started playing piano at the age of 6.
Oh, wow.
So I started playing classical piano. I went to classes at the age of 6.
Okay.
Then I went to Auntie Marianne. I studied music. I played in the college band. I played in the college western band. I played saxophone in the college western band. I play piano.
Do you still play sax?
Now I'm out of touch.
But can play?
If you give me a sax and I just play around with it for about a week, I think I'm sure I can get it.
Oh, wow,
I played it when I was about 16, 17, 18. Like 15, 16, 17, 18, I played the sax in school. So then I did that. Then also in school, if you take my school career, I was the college deputy head prefect. Then I was the secretary of the intra club. I played tennis for college. Then I was a scout. I was a president scout. I went from all island. I was one of the 2 who was selected to go to the Tokyo Jamboree. So I excelled in a lot of things. So because if people think that, okay, there is a notion in the general society that you go to a band or you come,
if you can't do anything else.
Can't do anything else, you come here. So I'm saying this to break that notion.
Yeah.
So I was very good at whatever I did, but it was not because I couldn't do anything. So when I was doing my degree also, I got a good job at a good corporate in Sri Lanka. So I was doing well in whatever I did, but my passion, my heart said do music. So then at a very young age, spoke to my dad and Santhush's dad and all. And I don't want to go into detail because I've told this story many a times in so many interviews, but I'm just coming to the point. So then took 2 years off and wanted to do this. So this was also yet again, see, that you don't have the passion, but you have a lot of hard work and you do it. But when you have the passion and when you have the drive, which couples up with the hard work, this is where it can get you. So I just wanted to say that to all the young people who are listening into this. So it was a very interesting time. So and what I do is wherever I sit with people, I draw inspiration from everybody, even from a cleaner. Say now, if I see a guy who's doing his job really well, I tend to sit and observe the guy.
And it's commendable, no?
And see why he's excelling at his job.
And no one else can really do that, no? There's that also.
Of course. Because I think any job in this world, it requires passion for you to excel in that job.
That is true.
You can be a peon. You can be a guy who sweeps the streets. You can be the president of the country. If you are not passionate about your job,
that's true.
And if you are not hardworking, if you don't have that combination,
it's just a vocation.
You are just another guy doing it. Even if you take a guy who does law, if you take there are so many when you go to Halsdorf, you get like that tens and thousands of lawyers.
But you're right. This is a big problem with the job market, isn't it? Even in Sri Lanka that we see.
People are searching for jobs. I hate that word job. Why the hell do we call it job market? You should not be aiming to do a job. You should be aiming for a career.
Exactly.
Even in cleaning.
That's
if you are passionate enough to start a career in cleaning, you will not only be a cleaner, you will become a owner of a cleaning company
At some point.
at some point.
Yeah.
So people should stop trying to find a job. People should try to get into a career which they are passionate enough to pursue. This is where we are going wrong.
Machang, in the very, very good point. I always say this. So we can trace where people talk about social reforms, political reforms, economic reforms. But I think the most important thing we need is educational reforms here, right?
Yes.
All those things will eventually fall into place if we have that. So now you're touching upon this. What you're talking about, I think it's not only like a inbuilt and say an inherent sense of values and passion, but do you believe that this is also mindset and attitude and it has to be instilled in schools and in homes? Do you feel that is so?
It has to be instilled at home more than schools. Now, for me, when I went to school, most of my teachers were very anti-sports, anti-extracurricular activities.
Or one or the other. The ones into sports is
sports Now, even my daughter says they are into rowing.
right.
And the class teacher
Discouraged.
completely ignores the sports people, thinking that no, y'all are useless, y'all don't learn, y'all are doing sports. So this is something that even they understand. The teacher won't say it, but then the teacher
They make it
let
felt.
go. They
Yeah.
let go of the student.
Of anyone who shows a different.
Yeah. So that I experienced in school, but that didn't affect me because my father at home was like, no, you pursue your passion. He said, because now my father's father, he did like trading and he did business.
Oh, okay.
My father's father was a big businessman.
All right.
But my father's, if you take his elder brother, his second, like two elder brothers.
Lawyer, contractor. No?
Lawyer, contractor. My father in the army. The other one again went into building contracts. So
Very
he was a
diverse.
construction guy.
Okay.
And one was a teacher. Two were teachers. So it was and they all excelled in what they did.
Okay.
So he firmly believed that each one of us are destined to do what we are destined to do. And we need to find that. So this is the concept that I live with. Now, even with my daughter, I was just like, I think I was trying to explain it to you at the start. So when I initially, when she was born, you think that you'll be highly thrilled, but as a father,
Is it scary?
no, I think a father takes some time to really develop that bond more than a mother.
Okay. That's interesting.
You understand?
You mean with any child or particularly a daughter?
No, any child.
Okay.
Because a father, like you see the child once it comes out of the mom, right?
Yeah.
So, yes, socially and consciously, you really love when you have the connection. But that subconscious, that automatic, that natural connection comes when the child starts to respond to you.
Okay.
When it becomes two-way.
Right.
Right? First you think, yeah, it's love, but then you realize, oh no, this is more deeper.
Okay.
Then that starts to develop. So then until about 6, 7, 8, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, it's like you have control over them. But then after that, they start becoming individual.
And independent in their own way.
Independent in their own way.
Isn't it scary?
No, but that is the time you start to see what their passion is, what they like to do.
Okay. And the choice you have, like you said in the start, whether to let them learn on their own or you control and micromanage everything.
So what happens is most of the parents try to micromanage.
There you go. Yes.
What you have to do is you have to let go and see where he or she is running. And you need to then try to help them by being with them and giving them the right advice.
And the support. Right?
Yeah. And also, if you should not be happy if there are people who completely 100% listens to you. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. If you take any individual who has success, they are not the very good boys or the good girls.
That is true.
They a person, an individual who has had a little bit of rebellion in them.
And gone off the tracks
Gone
rails a
off the
bit.
tracks a little bit. I'm not saying completely. People who have gone completely off track have
Not
finally come back
Yeah, yeah.
on track. So you have to have a rebellion. So I always tell my daughter, okay, look, even if I advise you, if a teacher advises you, take in what you want, just like what you said at the start. Take in what you want. Other thing you can keep inside. Burn your fingers, learn from it. That is what is going to mold you. So this is the kind of approach I think. This is the kind of approach I think we have to have in general with our own life and also
Society in general.
society in general.
How do you think we can bring about this, though? I mean, we have a bygone education system, I think, in terms of the curricula.
Okay, so I will now, since you're coming to this, I will share my thought with you about how to change a system in the present day.
Okay.
We saw that people were asking for system change.
Yeah.
But I personally feel that we went about it a little bit too old school.
Okay.
So sometimes my idea might be criticized by people. But I think we went about it the old school way. As in, if you take the world, I don't know, this is my perception of things.
You're talking contextually the contemporary world. Or
Temporary, we had a revolution last year. We had so many things. We had problems in the world. We have problems in Sri Lanka. But this is my take on how we did things was old school. I'll come to it. So you take World War II as a center point of things.
okay.
Prior to World War II, I feel the world was very black and white.
Right.
Even World War I was fought in a very black and white way.
Right.
As in, this party comes from this side, the other party comes from the other side. You had a ground where they can and they fought like the old school wars.
Right.
So for these people, they are white. For these people, they are white. The other party is black.
Right.
And the world was very black and white. Like from where you stand, you see black on the other side, you see white on your side.
Right.
But in World War II, this equation changed. I think the present context of the world started to happen at that point. That was like the center point. It would have come from that time.
You mean in terms of like
The world became grey.
Right.
There was no more black and white in this world.
You mean more interdependent?
Not interdependent. Everything. You don't know what is right. You don't know what is wrong.
Oh, okay.
You don't know who is good. You don't know who is bad. Why? Because everything is good and bad.
That's a good point. Like a double-edged sword.
You're black, you're white.
Right.
I'm also black, I am white. There is nobody who is completely white.
Or completely
black.
black. Yeah.
So the world, the way the world operates also, it became grey.
Right.
The world didn't operate black and white anymore. So in that context, establishing a system, changing a system, or doing things became a whole different ball game.
You mean that
Prior to the world becoming grey,
right?
wars could be fought black and white. You can win good versus evil, evil versus good. You can have clear-cut battles.
You're talking about the tactics and the strategy has to change.
Yes.
And evolve.
But in a grey world, I think in order to change something, in order to change a system, I think you have to be like a termite.
Okay, that's interesting.
How do you be like a termite? I feel you need to infiltrate.
Okay.
You need to integrate.
Also be a team player.
No, just hear me out. You have to infiltrate.
Yeah.
You need to integrate.
Okay.
Then you need to analytically disintegrate. But while you disintegrate, you have to have a plan how to reintegrate the system. Like when you are disintegrating something, if you don't have a plan of how to put it back together, you're going to end up in disaster.
That's a good point.
You're going to end up in disaster. If you're going to break something, you need to know what you're going to make it back into.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll be left with parts. Everybody arguing, we'll make this, we'll make that, and you'll be having some parts in front of you.
That's true. So there's no that's interesting. There's what you're saying is without having a proverbial solution inside.
No, and also you cannot disintegrate something the old school way anymore.
That's true.
You can't go and chop it down because this world is so intertwined and integrated. You can't just go and, as I said, you can't fight a black and white war anymore. You have to be like a termite. Say a termite will enter from somewhere. You don't know until the guy comes from the top. And he has disintegrated this whole system.
That is true.
But while disintegrating, he has built a different network inside. But has he done it at once? Has he now make a has the termite just dropped the wood? No. He has kept the outer shell while slowly going up, disintegrating, reintegrated, disintegrating, reintegrated, disintegrating. So he has got his whole, what you call the hive inside, with the old shell keeping it intact as well.
But taking away the metaphorical symbolism of that, can this be done by human beings without governance or leadership?
Yeah, so even in that system, you have a governance and a leadership. There's a queen, there's everything happening, but they know when they are disintegrating this piece of wood, they know they will build the hive inside that and disintegrate. So they are not just going to first eat the thing and let it
Let it crumble, yeah.
So what happens is, as the new generation, I think that we have watched too many movies. And movies, too many old school kind of movies.
Also, maybe being disconnected with each other also, no?
No, maybe being disconnected is not the thing. We are not taught strategy in school. We are not taught certain things.
Responsibility,
yes.
accountability.
We are not taught. No, we are not taught to strategically think. We are taught to passionately think as well. So see, having passion is of no use if you can't incorporate strategy into it.
That is true. I do.
You understand what I mean? So I think in the present day, what as Sri Lankans, what we lack is that even if we are going to change a system or disintegrate a system, there is a system to do that as well.
Right, yes.
So if we don't have a system to disintegrate a system and reintegrate the system, we are just going to be in a vicious cycle throughout.
It's just pure chaos.
It's pure chaos.
Bedlam. I agree with you. But at the same point, there are some systems, Machan, that are so protected, and its systems tend to protect other systems, and some systems are built on foundations itself. Bygone systematic foundations that maybe, this is a pure hypothesis. Let's say that you want to change the system. Let's say people have tried to change this system through dialogue, through conversation, through different proposals and different ideologies. But you can't change the system, especially if a system is corrupt, or especially if a system has certain loopholes. Every system has loopholes. There's no foolproof, like an perfect, immaculate system. But do you feel like sometimes, objectively speaking, that an entire factory reset is important to take down a system in order to restructure it?
No, if you do a factory reset, you will end up with chaos. You can't do that because the present day and age, the world is too complicated for that. As you said, the foundations are too strong for that. Only way we can do it is, as I said, 4 steps. Integrate. Like the first step is you have to infiltrate. Integrate.
Yeah.
Structurally disintegrate with a plan to reintegrate. Yeah. Whatever you want it to be integrated back into.
This is anything, no?
Anything. I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about our industry. So when we came into the industry, you saw the kind of opposition we had.
Yes.
But we very systematically infiltrated and we created our own space.
That is true.
Then we started to build on that space. We didn't go to headbang with the others. Anybody who scolded us, we said, thank you very much. We took in what they wanted to say. Then say, for example, as I said, infiltrate and then, so then you have to integrate as well. Now, so there was a there was a person called Haidar and Kasim
Okay.
who used to hammer us on papers on all our the content that we had in our songs, saying that Sinhala Sahithyata එක මට ඒ කියන්නේ හොඳ නෑ කියලා. Like, it was like the language that you use is not
Appropriate.
appropriate.
Culturally, he was criticized.
No. In a language sense, because he's a very good Sinhala scholar. So what did we do? We go to headbang with him because he was criticizing us left, right, and center. If we got emotional, we could have. What we did was we called him and invited him to write a song for us, which he couldn't say no to. And today he has become the guy who has wrote most of our songs. And we have also managed to get his essence and give our essence to him also. Because until he came to write to us, he was only writing serious songs. So he wrote Unmadani, he wrote Kirikodu, he wrote Chandani Paela.
Okay.
Right? But then beyond that, he understood what we were talking also. And he wrote like Ashanti's Andavaturenava. Then a slightly more height up Pathupem Pathum. To our last year's hit, which was Unmada Premagi.
Okay.
So he also adopted, we also adopted. So this is what I said. You have to infiltrate, integrate, then disintegrate, and then rebuild whatever you want to build new. So you have to be very smart about it. You can't be emotional and this thing about it. Passion and see, being passionate about something and being only emotional about something is completely two different things.
You can't. Emotional intelligence is good, but without having strategy, without understanding the mechanics behind the inner workings, you're just going to make emotional, irrational
This is what
choices.
happens to us in the last 2 years with everything, last 5 years with everything, with politics, with
The
decision
economy.
making, the economy, everything, right? This is one of the main problems that we have as a country,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Even if you go down the road, why do people have road rage? Why do people fight? Why do people go and try to? Because we are too emotional about everything. We don't sit back, relax, and think about things and do it strategically.
No, I love that. That's a good point. With regards to integration, I'm going to take the conversation somewhere else now quickly, right? Because we've always, not even us as a band, we've tapped into a niche space. We've built a holistic ecosystem for ourselves that thrives, working with different consultants and different professionals, and in order to do what we do. It's of course more smaller scale and in scope than what you guys do, but then we cater to a different market and a different segment.
What you do is what you do. It doesn't have to be smaller or bigger.
But what you do it well.
Whichever you do. See, I want to share this also. You can do a niche product, but as long as it impacts the society or your consumers in a positive way, and you're happy,
And you can sustain yourself. Yeah.
That's a successful business than a large business who does harm to society and who are struggling to sustain themselves in a bigger scale.
In a bigger scale.
And you're not happy. So completely irrelevant justification, I guess.
Thank you for that. Machang, in terms of integration, in the current age, we tapped upon it contextually, right? And we're talking about with the advance of technology, so many things. We're talking about globalization. If we're talking marketing, how globalization is something where, like you said, the entire business model around the world has changed. Not just the need for organizational, structural change. We are talking about business models, the back end, the front end, everything, how the bottom line, top line, how it's affected. Everything we need to, I think the right word is have a more adaptive approach. And like you said, this integration thing is something I feel that more people need to touch upon, because I think having a collaborative model, an integrated approach, not just as organizations and businesses, as artists, as musicians, as any movement or any entity is incredibly important. But we are also seeing with the advance of tech, Machang, certain things where we are seeing a large generation who are growing so dependent on tech that they're starting to get estranged and disconnected from one another. We are seeing kids living vicariously now, where there are no, like you said, when you're small, you were playing with your dad. Like we grew up, we were climbing trees, we were falling off trees, and as teenagers, you're climbing into girls' balconies, and it was a different world. Right now, people have relationships where they care so much about external validation from strangers around the world that people are losing that personal touch and connection that they have. So, my question is, what do you feel are the pros and cons of tech right now? Yes, for the music industry, but also as an entrepreneur and as a businessman. Where do you feel that we have to find a nuance and a balance, Machang, between how do we balance tech? How do we integrate it in a holistic way?
It's like this, my personal view. I'm just sharing all my personal view. So I think us trying to, like as you said, the right word is how do you try to strike a good
Balance.
balance. But the term of balance also changes. If you take for your father or my father, the term balance would have been an entirely different
Thing.
set of things on the two sides.
Because the world was different then?
The world was different then. And now the world is different. So
Yeah.
when the world is different now, say for example, I'll start at this point. I feel that us trying to retaliate on how the world is progressing is of no use.
Yes.
Because the world is anyway
Going to go
down this path. The world is anyway going down this path.
Yeah.
If you take the whole of history, for hundreds of years, it has been going down this path.
That's true.
Right? So it's no use trying to rebel against it. It is just that how we learn to control the effects that it has on us. So it might differentiate from person to person as well. I feel, first of all, we need to understand. Now, my father used to say that he used to enjoy really a lot when he was in his hometown village, playing in the fields and everything. While we had to play on the streets. Like here, we used to live in the army quarters, and also we had like a street in front. We used to play cricket there. So when my father said that, what my father said, I understood like a story, but was I unhappy at that time? No, I was not.
No.
I was very happy with what I was doing. So did I, crave for the fields and everything to run? No, because when you don't know something, you don't know something.
That's
you enjoy what you do.
That's true.
Right now, though we stay in Sri Lanka and say, my God, we are so blessed with the sunlight and the fresh air and all this. Some guy in a snow-filled area in the Arctic, my God, they are suffering. Are they unhappy? No, they are happy with what they have.
That is
happy with what we have. So now, even if you take my daughter, though I tell her, oh, we used to connect with people, all this, and if I ask her, is she unhappy? She's not unhappy. She's very happy playing Roblox, talking to her friends online. She's very happy doing what she's doing.
How old is she, Macha?
14.
Okay.
So she's very happy what she's doing. So it's very subjective to what people, So as long as they don't lose the values, the core values of life, of that, of what is right and wrong, what is good and bad, right? As long as they see how to bring the best out of the other and the best out of them, I think harping about too much about what you said, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. And also, the more older you get, you need to make a lot of effort to understand why the young people are doing what they're doing.
That is true. Because when we were young, the adults may not have understood.
Exactly. So what I think is now, even with my daughter, what I do is when we go in the car, we have a common playlist playing. One song what she likes, one song what I like, one song what my wife likes. So we have got the old school pop playing, we have got the new pop playing, we have got the new rock songs playing, the new metal playing, BTS playing randomly. So when you start to make that a way of life, you start seeing each other's perspective. And then you start looking at things in that perspective.
even that's integration, isn't it, in a way?
Exactly. So what we need to do is not binge about it, but we need to know that the world will keep changing, right? So whatever we are experiencing now with the next generation is what we have sowed. Like whatever you sow, like whatever we implanted is only growing right now. So you can't complain and say, "My God, this is bad. What is this? Are these people doing?" Whatever our generation, see, when we were young, we all wanted new computers, AI. We were thinking of virtual reality and all. We thought it was really cool. So guys from our generation went ahead and created it.
That's true.
And now we can't say that, because we created it and created this mess. So every generation creates the next mess. So what you need to do is you can't sit and complain about it. You need to take ownership of it and you need to sort out some of the messes you make. But then, and that doesn't mean that the next generation is unhappy also. Yes, they have their set of problems.
Yeah.
But they don't identify them as problems. They identify it as a normal way of life.
Normal way of life.
So did we. So did our parents. I'm sure my great-grandfather would have told my grandfather the same story.
When we were watching too much TV, listen too much radio,
and now
VHS tapes.
This is what I'm saying. So it's a continuous thing. Until the world comes to an end, this will be a continuous cycle.
Yeah.
Only thing what we can do is we can sit back, observe, and try to adopt this context as rightfully possible for us. That's all that we can do.
So to conclude the chat, I want to ask you a series of rapid fire questions.
Yes.
And in true spirit and form, I think what I love about this conversation, Bhath, is everyone has seen the public persona of yours. Everyone has, the people who do business with you have seen the entrepreneur. Then academically, you've also excelled in that. And that's, actually, I never told you this. You guys have also been an inspiration to me in that regard. Because as a guy playing in a rock and roll and metal band who's had many peaks and valleys and tumbles in life, that's one thing, that stigma and that perception that people have that you mentioned in the start has always pissed me off to great, immense degree. Like, oh my God, he's a musician because he can't do anything else. Oh my God, he did arts in school because the bug is incapable of
The problem is also, if I interrupt you there, the problem is also our own industry has created it for themselves. Most of our guys, they just concentrate only on the
one
music.
thing.
But you can't. We live in a world, no? We live in the normal world.
And we saw this, no? How many buggers suffered after the pandemic and even the economic crisis.
You need to know a bit of politics. You need to know a bit of economics. You need to know a bit of HR. You
Exactly.
need to know a bit of marketing. You need to know what your neighbor is doing.
If you don't know digital, you can't survive
If you
now.
don't know digital, if you need to know what he's doing,
Yes.
you need to know what she's doing.
That's true.
You guys can't see them, but and you need to know what everybody is doing and understand it. Because if you don't understand it,
And make an effort, no?
you have to make an effort.
Because the ecosystem is the sum
Yes.
of different parts, right? Different parts. So like even for me, Masang, I wanted to really not just prove people wrong, but I wanted to pursue higher studies academically, professionally. I'm still doing it. Last 4 or 5 years, I've been really focused. I've really worked hard. I've got a double master's in business administration and digital marketing. I finished 7 stages of CIM. I'm now doing a top up because I'm hoping to do a doctorate next year. So this is not like braggadocio or me boasting, but it's to say that thank you. You guys have been,
But that's great.
no, but you guys, with the music, you guys also did the studies and you've also conducted and carried yourselves as professionals and businessmen. And I want you to know that I appreciate you making the time to be here, Masam, because it's obviously a culmination of all these things.
You have been, we all came to the industry during a very similar time period, and we're working together. So that respect will always be there.
And we're still here after 20.
I'm just about 5 years, 25 years after that time. So I'm just one call away for you always.
Thank you, Bathiya. Thank you so much. And I want to wish you and obviously Santhush, your wife and your daughter, all the best. Nothing but the best and success and prosperity in everything. I'm just going to drop a handful of rapid fire questions here because I would love to know, like, Bathiya as Bathiya, but what your thoughts are. What is your favorite book
My favorite book.
of, if you had to pick one book that had a impression on you, maybe as a kid or even now what you've read recently, that is your go-to book? That is someone asks you, Machang, I want to read something. You're like, you need to read this.
I see. I have read so many things, like in the past, like in the quite recent past and stuff. But you know, the book that made a lot of impact in my life. It's a very funny thing. It is
Great Expectations.
no, Oliver's Travels.
Oh, wow.
That book gave me perception, right? It gave me perception about size,
Okay.
what you can achieve despite your size,
Despite your
and also that size is a very subjective.
subjective thing, right? Yeah, that's beautiful. Mine is the Jungle Book, if I have to.
Is it?
Yeah. As a kid,
So at the age of 10, the Oliver's Travels gave me a different perspective of life. That is when I started to think that, size did not matter, problems did not matter.
Yeah.
If you put your heart and soul into it, you can do it. And also, to some people, you're big. To some people,
You're small.
small. So that book made a huge impact in my life.
What's your favorite movie? The one movie that had the biggest impact on you? Let's go with English film. Let's say Western.
Yeah. So the English, obviously, I think. Let me think about it a little bit, because I watch we all watch so many movies these days. I think I have to think about it, because there's so many movies. You can't choose one single movie. I guess.
But let's just say to the top of your head, if one movie comes. Which movie have you watched the most, Machan?
Which movie
Have you watched the most? You, not with family or not with...
Grown-ups?
Really?
Yes. I watched the whole series of movies like about 3 or 4 times. You know why?
No.
I think that movie is most impactful because the more older we get, people tend to get
Serious.
yes, like serious beyond context. You lose your
All sense of...
usefulness.
Yeah.
You lose
Sense of humor you have.
fun with those simple things in life.
Yeah.
So this movie comes and breaks it. So that is why I think I love it.
That's a super response.
I don't want to give you serious movies. I've watched a lot of serious movies which I've learnt of, but this one movie I can watch again and again.
That's a great. What's your go-to food, Macha? Your ultimate calorie dense or cheat meal? What's your one cheat meal?
Ultimate dense meal would be Japanese.
Okay.
And then next it'll be Chinese.
Okay.
Very obvious, but Japanese and Chinese would be my
Nice.
go-to.
Nice.
Because I love the flavors of those sauces and all. It's very subtle.
Authentic Japanese Chinese.
Yes.
Not
Yes.
the Western Chinese.
No.
Okay. So I know as a kid, you were inspired a lot by Elton John,
Yes.
right? I guess guys like Ray Charles and all also played a part.
So see, I've been exposed to a lot of old school stuff. I'll say it like that in a very short. So I've been inspired by a lot of people, and there is one Sri Lankan artist.
Okay.
He's Mr. Rokanta.
Okay.
I think Rokanta. I call him Rokantaya when I meet him. So I say Rokantaya is I think by far the last king of pop in this country. So we were greatly inspired by him, because I always try to find a local context to things.
Yes.
Because see, looking at global context things, like even like say for example, if you talk to a schoolboy here, if you use an example of the Facebook CEO or whoever, yes, those are inspirational stories. But then those boys and girls can't relate to it in terms of
The local context.
The local context, because they live here, they go to classes. So if you show them an example of a person who was in that context, who has made it,
They can relate.
then it's easier for them to relate.
So local artists, you'll obviously pick Rukanta.
Because Rukanta made a massive impact. I think Rukanta is the one who would change the landscape of the entertainment industry for our industry, for the music industry.
How do you mean? How did he change it?
Before Rukanta, the actors and the film industry dominated the entertainment landscape.
Okay.
But Rukanta came and sing overnight. He took that dominance towards the music industry.
Okay.
Prior to that, any endorsements, any big thing, it was all to do with the movie industry.
Okay.
But after Rukanta, it rapidly shifted to our industry.
To the
and the music business, the music industry became a dominant force in terms of general revenue, in terms of the entertainment economy of the country. The music industry became a dominant force after him.
After him. That's very interesting. Who would you say is your biggest inspiration as a marketer or an entrepreneur? Out there, if you had to pick someone in the Western world off the top of your head. I mean, everyone goes to the Bezos and the Musks and the Bransons.
I think the best marketeers in the world are all the leaders of every religion. No, I don't mean it with any bad thing. I'm a very religious person. But I think unintentionally how those religions, those thoughts
have disseminated,
how it was spread, how the institutions were made, is a very interesting case study for everybody.
Since the beginning of time up to now.
Everything starting from Judaism, Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, you take all the religions. I think the best structures of taking that message out, right, and doing it structurally, you can learn from that more than doing any marketing degree in the world.
Not the answer I was thinking, but wow, that's pretty good. Who's your biggest influence as a Western artist? That's the final question.
My biggest influence as a
Western artist. If there's one, okay, let me word it like this. If you could do a collaboration with one Western artist out there, as BNS,
or who's there,
or not there. If we can bring the bugger back, or he or she or whatever, who's the one person that you would die to do a duet with?
It would be a guy like Michael Jackson. Because he, that was not only a singer, a musician, creator.
Showman, performer,
marketer, bad businessman, but businessman. Bad businessman, but businessman.
But
businessman, right? And also, most of all, a completely bold kind of guy who made new innovations. He's an innovator.
That's a good point.
That I think that word will bring everything into one place and summarize it.
Because he did everything, no? From
he was, I think,
curating the dance to coordinating the lights and programming the lights to every change,
everything.
The sequences.
Yeah. So there may have been other people prior to him, like Elvis and all this, but I have not been greatly influenced by them. So I have seen this man during my lifetime.
Yes.
Actually,
you've seen him live?
No, I have not seen him live, but we've all seen him.
With him, yeah.
During our very much.
Which era of his Machang had the biggest impact?
I think the late 80s to the early 90s.
The whole Earth song time.
The black and white. The black or white.
Bad and Dangerous.
Bad and Dangerous had a lot of influence.
Super, Machang. Ane, thank you, brother. Thank you so much, man. Thanks for being here. And once again, blown away. Thank you for being so humble, down to earth. And we've had what I like to think is a solid...
It was my pleasure because I haven't had a call in a long time. We haven't had a very long, solid chat.
That's true.
My objective of coming here more than to be in the podcast was to like have this kind of reconnection with you that which we couldn't do because you were busy, we were busy, and we were doing completely different things.
That's true.
So it was a good chance for me to come and catch up.
No, and
I
I
had a cup of coffee prior to this.
we did. So
Yeah,
roughly, why
yeah,
not
I've had a good catch up then. Was going to
all this time
coffee shop.
before? Yeah,
Yeah,
that is
if he had gone to
coffee shop.
shop, we would have been, talking some other nonsense and crap. So
That's but thank you. I think even myself, I always like you. I always try to learn from other people. I never think I have learned enough. I think we will learn even on our deathbed. We'll still be learning a few things that we did not.
So something that I learned today is how these guys operate this studio. It's a very small space, but it's very intelligently done.
Beautifully done. No?
And I am going to use this learning to go and advise our guys how to operate in a smaller space but be more effective.
There you go, iFilm. So good stuff. So thank you for checking out the Island Renaissance podcast. And hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Please leave your comments. As usual, good comments, bad comments, it's all welcome. Try and be a bit kind though, you buggers, because this is the first podcast. I'm also still getting into the whole role of it. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Bathiya, for your time. And iFilm. Cheers.